was thinking about this idea of, could I talk about artistic or creative process? What is it like to be right on the edge of the wave? And I think one of the reasons that this had come up was I had just been writing a piece which actually got its first performance this past weekend, and it was a wedding blessing. And I noticed while I was composing it, what it felt like to be doing the composition. And it felt like I was kind of right in the moment of this wave that was in motion. And I had to have the courage of sort of surfing that moment, just that wave right then, and not think too far ahead, and not really be able to step out and away in the same way that you might in some other process. So this idea of not knowing what was about to happen was really fresh to me. And so when the invitation came, I thought, I think I would like to talk about that, because one of the things that, at least for me, that the value of the Creativity Conference is it really is a chance to discuss creativity itself. It doesn't talk, in my mind anyway, about, oh, let's figure out all the career moves you can make and how to do the things which could apply to any field. This is our field, and our field deals with this moment in the wave and this edge of it. So when I thought about process and I was trying to look for some images, the big thing that I think about is about inputs, whatever is coming in, and then outputs, whatever is going to come out on the backside of that, and then this idea in between of transformation. So I found an image that sort of, to me, captured, this is something like what process looks like. And you can repeat that process. Here's a building process, and you can see the same thing. There would be inputs, and then there would be outputs of, we've got another floor. The transformation is this building coming into play. And when you repeat process like this, things are controllable and you can improve them. You can get things to work better all the way around. And so I wanted to talk about this because this is the idea of repetitious process that can become very efficient and all of that. I should probably remind everybody, just be sure you're muted out, or we might pick up voices. We're good.
Okay.
So I looked up, this was really fun. I looked up on Wikipedia, well, maybe Wikipedia will help me with this thing of, is there some way that it can bring up something? And I just love this page: business management, law, science and technology, and then a whole series of subsets inside that. Notice anything missing? So what I came to was, this is what's missing on that page is artistic process, or the creative process as we are talking about it this week. That's not on the page. And I thought, why? Like, what is it that makes that an uncomfortable place to go? And this was, for me, the first clue that I had dug in myself into some sort of hole. I had sent this title because I had just written a piece and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And a piece arose and it completed itself. And that experience was fascinating to me, of both writing it and watching this evolution of don't know what in the world is going on while I'm writing it. And yet having some sort of uber mind creating. So I thought what makes this work for us is the orderly quality of it and the predictable quality of it. We can know the inputs going in, we can know what this will do to it, the nature of transformation, and we can know what will come out on the other end. Or the same with a building. If we have the right stuff and we do it in the right order, we're going to get that building. It's a recipe and it'll get a result. But I thought, well, maybe we're not talking about exactly the same thing. Maybe I need to go to art. So let me go to Wikipedia, and this will be fun, and I'll look up art. And here's what I found, and this is really fun. Art, a diverse range of activity resulting product, right? And so far, so good. And then it talks about the means that build it together. But this is the next sentence, and this is when it got fun for me and took me further down my rabbit hole. There is no generally agreed upon definition of what constitutes art. And I just love that moment of, great. So what I've got is, I've got this thing, except we can't agree on what the outcome actually even is supposed to look like. So I thought, what in the world, am I going to need to write them, and say, I can't do this presentation? And I began to think about the artistic process and how it's got the inputs on the right-hand side is paint and the means of creating it, and it's got the output over here, but that output is messy. It's inefficient. You can't repeat it, or you shouldn't. And that's one of the qualities of our work, is that we try not to repeat, not to build a building that can make the same building over and over again. We want a really unique experience, and that is by nature, as I had just experienced in composing, mysterious. And also it is by nature very personal. Not only is it personal to me as my way, it's personal every time. And this is another place where my whole went deeper and deeper about thinking about this idea of process, not knowing what will happen next. Because even if I develop all the skills, the next painting will still have the same mysterious quality that this one would, the same unknowns that I just experienced in composing. So what I realized, because this was a book that I was reading, Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, written by this wonderful Buddhist monk, and he has this phrase which he calls "don't know mind." And over again in the book, which is not an easy book. So if you go, buyer beware, it's not an easy book. But when I was reading it, he just kept saying over and over again, always keep don't know mind, always keep don't know mind. This is exactly the mind that everything in our society tells us not to have. We have know it mind, know it a lot, become really good at what you know mind. And I spoke about this yesterday. So again, it's this idea of moving outside of what generally we're being asked to do, because what we're being asked to do is to enter that wave of I don't know what will happen next. And so what is that wave? And that wave is now. The nature of that edge is an edge without a past and without a future. It's an edge of change. It is actually the actualization of don't know mind. And you could say it is the place of just doing. It is actually where doing and result are all the same. It isn't just drinking tea, that's still an object. It's being the drinking tea. And I wanted to speak about that just enough for us to stop on it, because this picture of this guy walking is what it feels like in that space. Without past and without future, what you're left, you can have remembering, but then you're remembering in now, or you can have imagining and then you're imagining in now. But in now itself, there isn't actually past. There's remembering, there's action, there's the doing of remembering, or there's the doing of imagining. It's a big idea, but we can do this, not hard. What's going on here is a non-reference moment. Don't have these reference points. And it's a terrifying place. And anybody who's been in a creative edge like that knows the terror of that blank page kind of feeling. What am I about to do? And it's the don't know mind that will help us. So I thought, well, do I have a place where I can go to illustrate don't know mind? And this is what I came up with. Can we call this a yellow wood? Because I would like to. If this could be our yellow wood, I could ask a question, could a poem come here? And you're smiling because you're already with Robert Frost. So I did a flow chart on don't know mind, according to Robert Frost. So if you start at the red, we can get here. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood. And sorry, I could not travel both, being one traveler. And I love this. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. We all know this poem. We know this poem. But I wanted to see if I could find the message beyond it's a beautiful poem. And I think the message is this don't know mind, which is where he is. And he actually tries to resolve it. Can I look far enough down to where it bends in the undergrowth? Can I figure it out? And he comes to this place of no. He comes to this place of I cannot answer that question. So the whole poem is in the next words, then took the other. Knowing I can't know, I'm left with don't know mind. And I have to take an action. my action actually starts to spur other actions. So the rest of the poem goes along, and he says, I'll tell this someday. So he moves ahead in his mind because the actions move forward, because every step along the way in this creative act is don't know mine. And he's made a decision, which is to skip to the end of the poem and say, I'll be telling this with a sigh someday. Ages and ages hence, two roads diversion of wood, and I traveled the one, I took the one less traveled by. That's made all the difference. All the difference is then took the other. It's an action with don't know mind. So what Frost gives us is this truth. A limited field of vision is an asset. It's not a loss. That's what he's telling us. Usually, we all look down the road as far as we can to where it bends into the undergrowth so we can fill it in. And Frost says, forget that. Creativity is acting within don't know mind. Creativity is acting within don't know mind. It's okay. And it's actually trusting I take the other and I don't know. This is don't know mind in action. So when we show up at the desk, we're really showing up for what I said, the genius of this moment. And so I found a little quote about Faulkner, from Faulkner, maybe. There's a lot of question about it, but he might have said it. I only write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes at 9 every morning. Somebody else earlier in one of the sessions, Karina heard it, that he said, inspiration finds you when you're working, right? And so the real truth is, and I've talked about this at previous creativity conferences, you have to show up. Showing up is the first thing. And what you're showing up for is genius. I'm going to say that again. What you're showing up for is your genius. The genius of the moment. What is that genius? Unlocking and accessing the unknown, hiding within now. Unlocking and accessing the unknown. You're in don't know mind. You don't know, and the only way to find it is to show up for the genius, which is the moment. In other words, you enter willingly into the now, and you don't know. So I looked up genius in Wikipedia. I hope by now you're laughing, because I wanted to show that maybe still, I'll get something. And actually here, finally, I got something that's useful. It was really valuable. Genius, according to Wikipedia, whoever they are, is the characteristic of original and exceptional insight. And this I really did actually finally like. And I thought, wow, that captures something, and I can go with that. Original and exceptional insight. So when I show up, what I'm looking for is the me part of this, not ego me, but my life experience me, gives me something original. And then something exceptional is just something more than puppies are cute. I want something here that moves beyond something prosaic. So I thought the real work of the artist is to transform insight into creativity. And you use that in two ways. One is, the only thing you've really got is memory, in the sense that memory is your life experience as the film of your life, right? That you can go back to. How did I feel? What do I remember? You're selecting what was important out of all of that really long movie and saying these things, they stick out and they become material. But the other possibility is to skip ahead and to say, using that memory, can I imagine anything in the future that doesn't yet exist? By the way, very interesting, creativity as a word doesn't, as a word the way we're meaning it, shows up in around the 14th century, Chaucer's time, as divine creativity. And the kind of creativity we are discussing is an Enlightenment idea. And this is very interesting to me, because the old way of thinking of creativity during, let's say, the time of the Greeks was imitation. You imitate nature. The best creativity is that which most closely imitates nature. If you think about it, what happened in the 19th century with the invention of the camera, and it really just threw everything all out of kilter, because suddenly a machine could do it. So what is painting when painting is no longer imitating nature? Because a camera can do it better than you could. Therefore, painting must have, in that moment, become about something else. And creativity itself becomes something about other than merely imitating nature, but actually to transform this insight that we're getting into something that's new, a body of work. So then one leads to immediately this question, which is a big deal. What's being transformed? What's being transformed? And I would like to rephrase the question, who is being transformed? Which is actually far more important to us because, of course, it's the Creator. The Creator is being transformed. I thought if I could write a book in the Bible, if I were to ever write such a book, which I cannot begin to imagine for many reasons writing, but if I could, the title of that book would be How God Changed When He Created the World, meaning the nature of creativity is that the Creator must undergo change. Creator is not outside creativity, it is the vortex of change within the action of being creative. So who is being transformed is a better question than what. That's why that opening machine about process doesn't really capture us, because the machine itself isn't transforming, but we are. So the creative process looks something like this. Sorry, I couldn't resist. That we have to start with imagining. And that is a preparation for creativity, but it's actually what I really liked here was the artist begins the process of bringing the art into existence. And so what I'm trying to show here is the art exists first inside the possibilities of the mind and the limitations that the mind may place. Stravinsky said the moment he puts in limitations, it helped him with creativity. It's when he had no limitations, he couldn't create. So, how many players will there be? How much time? Is dance involved? These things affected his ability to create. So preparation. And then intention. I absolutely love this. Do you know this painting? And this painting by Sargent, 1884, very famous society woman, as we can tell. And I'm bringing it closer and closer. And I want you to notice her earlobe. Would you, please? So here is the thing I want you to read. This painting caused controversy because of the reddish pink color that he used in the earlobe, which was far too suggestive. And it supposedly ruined her reputation because, after all, she had blood running under that white skin. And so this is really sex. And it was just something they couldn't manage. I just love that because how far the mighty have fallen. What we really deal with here is where part of this painting is the artist talking about the nature of a society, what you find scandalous, good grief. But another part is we are indeed human, and he has brought this humanity as a feature by sort of bringing up more of the white skin because she's a woman who never gets tanned, and then making the red pop out more. So we have whatever that might mean for you, take it. But I find this to be fabulous. It's the idea of intention. That means finally we get to creation, which, since we're the machine creating, are being affected by mood, our surroundings, our mental state. And then finally, as we move from creation, we may have to extend creation. This happened to me in the piece I wrote. I wrote it in 1 hour, and then I had this incubation time where I would have to come back to it and leave it for a month, coming and going, until over time the piece finally finished itself. Finally, there's a part of the creative process which is you send it out. And it might be interesting that I'm including it, but I am, because the feedback for you is, was it accepted or rejected? Was it understood? Was it not? I think it's Schoenberg who says the intention or the goal of the artist is to be understood. So that includes appreciation and criticism and all of that. In my view, that last part is maybe the least valuable. I do see you and I'm watching the clock. We're going to make it. The least valuable, because what's important is how you were transformed. Process doesn't know what will happen next because this machine isn't changing, but this one is. So process really looks for us like the one on the right. That just takes me to the way this really works in art is jazz. It's an interaction of structure and improvisation. It's the stuff you make improvising over a structure, the limitations you've set. The way it works in a jazz club, they relinquish control. They take on the accidents as being an asset. They learn the instrument so they can play in the song in any key. And finally, they play with and in the unfolding now. That's what they're playing with. So the creative process is don't know mind, making things. That's actually what it is. That's why it doesn't know what will happen next. It is the essence of creativity.